Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
It's never too early to set expectations and goals for your child's education. The UA College Savings Plan provides opportunities that can help you reach your educational savings goals. Save in Alaska. Study anywhere. There is more information available by calling 1-888, the number 4, and then Alaska. This message sponsored by the UA College Savings Plan.
The National Weather Service.
Indie Alaska is a groundbreaking series that dives into the lives of people living in the last frontier. Each episode introduces you to colorful characters from around the state. Funding for Indie Alaska is provided in part by Alyeska Pipeline Service Company. Catch the latest episodes at alaskapublic.org.
And thanks so much for joining us this Friday for today's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting this evening's show. There's a wind chill advisory out for the Brooks Range here, the Northeast Brooks Range, as well as the eastern Arctic coast for tonight. East-northeast winds 10 to 20 miles per hour through those areas, maybe some higher gusts up to 25 there. That'll create wind chills down to about 55 below zero at times throughout the night tonight. Otherwise, snowfall last evening and into early today up to 6 inches at Valdez. Cordova picked up about 4 inches. Otherwise, around an inch or so from Anchorage on up to Eagle River and those areas there. And the area of moisture responsible for that already sliding up to the northeast throughout the day today, bringing the snow up into the middle and upper Tanana Valley on up into the upper Yukon Valley there. Just some lingering flurries and light scattered snow showers along the Alaska Range and kind of extending down into the Susitna Valley, Talkeetnas, and to a lesser extent over the Copper River Basin areas. And you can see that batch of clouds slipping off to the northeast there while skies kind of cleared out here along the North Gulf Coast, but another patch of clouds there slipping up in toward Prince William Sound from the south-southwest. Not bad, a dry day over the Panhandle today. There were a few scattered showers up along the north coast there and around Yakutat, as well as some areas of low clouds and fog in over the inside waters. Also a pretty nice day back over Valdez. Much of the interior just seeing some variably cloudy skies with flurries throughout the entire area here. Some of that up into the Koyukuk Valley, but pretty light on the wind conditions there throughout much of Alaska today, the exception being up along the western Arctic coast. East-northeast winds there gusting or up to 30, gusting over 50 miles an hour in the case of Point Hope today. Extending back up to about Cape Lisburne there, a little bit of snow and blowing snow up in that area. And those winds pulling the cold air southward through the Bering Strait and all the cold air down into the western Bering over to about the Pribilof Islands and onto the south there. Temperatures below freezing, but a pretty tranquil day here for the eastern Aleutians. Then some moisture down here to the south. With this system sliding eastward, you can see a pretty good area of rain, not quite making it to the Alaska Peninsula today. A few scattered rain and snow showers over the central Aleutians, and then this system down here to the south, just bringing a few skiffs of snow out to Shimeonat too. Otherwise, widely scattered snow showers out here over the Bering Sea area. Again, those strong winds up here along the northwest coast. Most of that wind down in across the northwest Bering Sea there. Lighter winds over the southeast Bering, and this area of snow sliding up into the eastern interior here with a few, again, flurries over the Koyukuk Valley and some leftover moisture hanging around the southeast interior, but skies clearing out over portions of the Copper River Basin today. A few isolated showers here along the southeast coast, mostly from about Sitka on up toward Yakutat. Yakutat picked up about 1/3 of an inch of rain in the last 24 hours, and some patchy areas of fog in over the inside waters. And looking at the forecast for tonight, this system down here to the south makes a pretty good jog up to the north and brings rain across the Queen Charlotte Islands and then across Dixon Entrance, with the rainfall chances along with increasing winds here for the southeast coast. In fact, gales are out tonight for the outer coastline here, and rain spreading into possibly the Klawock area. Definitely Heidelberg will have a better chance, and on over toward Annette. Otherwise, up to the north, variable clouds with a few isolated rain or snow showers, and then some lingering moisture up here, mostly along the Alaska Range, as that other area moves off up over the Mackenzie River Delta area. Again, no change from today here over the interior, just a lot of variable cloudiness with a few light flurries going on, patchy fog over in the eastern Arctic coast. Still pretty breezy there on the west side, but scattered moisture here along the Alaska Peninsula of either rain or snow, but pretty light precipitation, and then a few scattered snow showers around Nunivak Island. The main batch of snow with the cold air up over the northwestern Bering Sea. Could still see a few snow showers here over the Aleutians, but not too bad as this system passes by to the south as it heads eastward, and that another low center here well southeast of Kodiak Island, and pretty good south to north jet here will push this front right up into the southern part, or the central southeast coast, but it'll weaken as it moves north and northwest throughout the day tomorrow. So let's look for some precipitation to accompany that front as it dissipates over the central panhandle there. Otherwise looking pretty good here over the Copper River Basin area, North Gulf Coast. Dry day for Yakutat, also pretty dry, variable clouds, south central Alaska. A chance of a few snow showers around Kodiak Island, but amounts will be quite light. Also up into Kachemak Bay or Kamishak Bay, on down along the Alaska Peninsula area there. And partly to mostly clear skies here from the Yukon Delta, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, all the way up to the western Arctic coast there. A few more clouds on the eastern north slope. An area of snow develops here from about the Alaska Range on the north slope areas across the White Mountains into the southern upper Yukon Valley, but any amounts will be less than an inch with that batch of moisture. And again, this system pulling eastward here, most of the precipitation will stay to the south, and then some scattered rain or snow showers from the eastern Aleutians on up into the southern Bering Sea, and in over the southeast Bering, some scattered snow showers as well. And then for Sunday, a front does lift northward into the area here, kind of from the backs in from the southeast to west there. So rain and snow coming in with a little bit of an increase in the winds there for the Pribilof Islands. Occasional rain for the Alaska Peninsula. Scattered rain or snow showers possible for Kodiak Island, and also some snow showers for St. Lawrence Island. Otherwise, pretty breezy and dry conditions with cold temperatures well below zero up here over the northern interior throughout the weekend, and some patchy fog on the east side there, but through the interior here, mostly clear skies, just a few variable clouds, especially down along the North Gulf Coast here and in toward Cook Inlet, but nothing very significant at all, and definitely nothing that will produce any snowfall. Look for some rain and gusty winds, gale force winds to come back along the south coast there, with that next system coming northward, actually spreading the moisture in tomorrow evening and overnight tomorrow night, and that'll spread up towards the central panhandle throughout the afternoon on Sunday. Northern areas probably staying dry throughout most of the day. Temperatures down along the southeast coast today range from 30 degrees this afternoon at Juneau up to 43 at both Klawock and Annette, 41 at Sitka, 32 over at Wrangell, 37 at Yakutat, 32 again there at Cordova. Valdez had 28, Seward 31, 26 at Homer, and a 28 at Kenai, Anchorage 27. And then a little farther to the north, cooler temperatures, that's 16 at Squintna, 3 degrees at Gulkana, Northway and Delta, Fairbanks -3, 3 above again there at Tanana, and up at Fort Yukon 0, 5 below at Bettles. Much colder through the Brooks Range and North Slope areas today. Anatuvik at -29 this afternoon. They had the state's low of 35 below earlier today, and teens to near 20 below along the Arctic coast, and -10 there at Kivalina. Otherwise, Kotzebue had 4 below. Nome was 1 above. 1 below there at Tin City, and in the interior, 5 below at McGrath. Otherwise, Unalakleet had 7, -2 at Sleepmute, 0 this afternoon at Bethel, and 0 to 5 above along the southwest coast with 18 out at Gamble. For the Pribilofs, St. Paul had 29, 31 at St. George, mid-30s here for the Central Aleutians. Right at freezing there with a little light snow out at Shemya. Otherwise, about 10 degrees warmer here at Unalaska with 41. 30s to lower 40s along the peninsula here with 41 at Sand Point, one of the warmer spots, but 21 at Pilot Point. 32 this afternoon at Kodiak and 13 in King Salmon. Lows tonight again into the mid-30s here over the North Slope and into the Brooks Range again. Otherwise 15 to 25 below there for the Arctic coast, right down into the central interior with below 0 readings right down along the Yukon Delta out to the coastline. Milder conditions here along the North Gulf Coast with 20s to lower 30s down to Kodiak Island. Otherwise South Central Alaska mostly in the teens to 10 below over the Copper River Basin. And upper 20s to lower 40s for the southeast coast and lows right around freezing for the Aleutians. Highs for tomorrow, mid to upper 30s here for the Aleutians, 2 lower 40s there for Unalaska again, 30s to lower 40s for the peninsula. Coldest weather up here in the north slope staying again well below 0 in that -20 to 30 degree below range over the north slope, milder along the Arctic coast. And highs possibly punching above 0 there into the Tanana Valley areas with 30s to mid-40s for the Panhandle. For flying weather tomorrow, again, IFR here for the southern southeast coast, marginal VFR spreading northward there, possibly as far north as Juneau. VFR for the Yakutat area back into Prince William Sound and the southeast interior. Then some marginal VFR possible here for the southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula, on over the Aleutian Range, and possible IFR on the east side of Kodiak Island. And then marginal VFR up over the east central interior areas there, the 40-mile country over to possibly as far west as Tanana with that area of slight snow. Same thing for the eastern Arctic coast. Could be some IFR here for Point Hope and Cape Lisburne, and also IFR St. Lawrence Island down to near the Pribilofs and around Nunivak Island. Otherwise marginal VFR to a patch of IFR out over the central Aleutians. Passes Anatuvik, VFR, same forecast for Adigan as well. Lake Clark and Merrill, both wide open tomorrow. Good VFR flying for rainy and windy. Marginal VFR, lowest conditions on the north entrance, but VFR there coming out of the south side. And for Isabel, south side VFR through the pass marginal. And from Mentasta, that same pattern there with the lowest conditions to the north, better, higher conditions to the south. Tanita, though, VFR in either entrance. Portage looking really good tomorrow. Chilkoot and White, both VFR throughout the entire day. Freezing levels at the surface there near the Pribilofs and across the southern Bering Sea, right up along the North Gulf Coast here, northern Cook Inlet, and then back down into the Panhandle, 2,000 feet, lifting northward there to about Elfin Cove and then diving off to the southeast. And icing threats again with that first dissipating front. Look for some occasional rime icing to come northward with that, below about 9,000 feet. And another significant batch back to the southeast, and that will be sliding northwestward, coming into the area there tomorrow evening, overnight tomorrow night, and then gradually inching its way northward throughout the day on Sunday. Otherwise icing free through much of mainland Alaska with some insignificant possibilities here over the Alaska Peninsula area. Northern Bering Sea, and again, most of the moisture staying south of the Aleutians there, be right on the edge for Adak and Atka. Upper level wind flow chart showing southwest flow here, the main trough center there southeast of Varangal Island, but only about 40 to 50 knots at 33,000 feet through the interior. The main jet well to the south coming out of Japan and heading eastward here all the way almost to the west coast, and it takes a turn to the north there between the Queen Charlotte's and Vancouver Island. And that's going to be kind of kicking those fronts northward into the Panhandle over the weekend and into the first of next week. And at 9,000 feet, 60-knot winds there just west of Dixon Entrance, 40 knots west of Port Alexander. Otherwise pretty light here through the southeast interior. 25 to 35-knot winds up over the northwest, light winds over the eastern Bering Sea, picking up a little bit here over the central Aleutians, 35 to 45 knots in that area. On to 3,000 feet, About the same flow here, easterlies 25 to 30 knots for the central to the western Aleutians, much lighter for the Fox Islands. 25 knots there for the Alaska Peninsula, kind of a northeast flow here across the Gulf. 20 to 25 knots, but pretty light in over southern Alaska. Not too bad over the interior. 20 to 30 knot winds there for the western Arctic coast and northwest areas. And again, those strong winds here, southeast up to 60 knots, just southwest of Prince of Wales Island, with the stronger winds out to the west, but lighter as you go north. Turbulence-wise, occasional moderate chop there with those stronger winds. Dixon entrance up into probably Port Alexander there with light to isolated moderate chop as far north as White Pass and over to about Yakutat. Down to Kodiak Island, could be a little bumpy, but nothing too significant. Nothing significant over the interior here. And with those windy conditions from Point Lade down to Point Hope, occasional moderate chop below about 5,000 feet, and that same thing going on out over the western Aleutians. And after the break of Hangar Flying, I'll be back to look at the marine forecasts.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary O'Connor with the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. Thank you to Alaska Public Media for allowing us to bring you Hangar Flying. This evening, we are honored to have on our show Ms. Katie Doherty, who is an airline captain and a flight operations training manager for a company based in Anchorage. She has an interesting job and a very interesting career track. Katie, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
You're originally from Alaska, so you were exposed to aviation early. How did you get interested in being a pilot?
My first summer back from college, I had a summer job with Air Helicopters in Valdez, and the pilots just saw how much I liked flying and talked about maybe doing that as a career. I took my first lesson with Aerotech at Merrill Field, and I was hooked.
And after you got your private pilot certificate, then in Anchorage, you left the state and did some flight training in the lower 48?
Yeah, I found it difficult to get my instrument rating in February at Merrill Field. So I went to Vegas. I got the rest of my ratings there and flew tours to the Grand Canyon, and then got hired at American Eagle, and I was there for about 14 years.
Wow. So you've worked in different aviation companies, different sizes, different areas, different locations. Do you think that you've ever been treated differently because you're a female?
You know, I don't know. I don't really think of myself, especially when I'm flying, as a female first, more as a pilot first. I know, I mean, there have been aviation jobs where I have been asked, well, I've just been told that because I was a woman, they had had difficulties with that, but I just said I was a hard worker, and I think I went and showed I was a hard worker. That particular chief pilot, that particular company, they said when I left that they would hire me back in a heartbeat. So, but that's really only been the one situation that I've had.
Great, great. So your career track, you've kind of done the reverse of what a lot of pilots do, in that a lot of pilots come to Alaska to build time, and then they go back to the lower 48 to work for a larger airline. So you were working out of Chicago, doing some pretty busy airspace and larger aircraft flying. Do you think that you picked up anything working there that helped you as a pilot in Alaska?
Well, I think there's a lot of 135 in Alaska, and I spent 14 and a half years doing Part 121 flying. So I think as Alaska starts more towards the 121, as they have in the last few years, I think that kind of experience definitely makes a difference here. And then also I flew more complex airplanes, and as we're starting to get more complex airplanes here, I think that's helped a little bit.
So definitely it's helped in your job as a captain in a 121 airline.
Yes.
You see a lot of the similarities in policies and regulations, for sure.
Yes, yeah, yes. And Also, on the training manager side, I've used a lot of those policies. Yeah, so I think that it's helped on that side as well, the training manager side.
Do you think it was a fairly easy transition coming back to Alaska, or did you sort of know what to expect?
No, you know, the flying's very different here. You know, in the States when you fly, you're radar vectored, you know, onto final, and it was a big eye-opener coming here and being, you know, cleared for an approach before you ever made it, you know, to the initial approach fix, and so having to fly an entire instrument approach it's different than 121 flying that you do in the States.
So it sounds like it was a good contrast between between both jobs in the highly diverse types of operations between 121 operations both in Alaska and in the lower 48. Now your company has operations in the lower 48 as well.
Yeah.
And you get to fly there?
I haven't yet. I would like to. I have actually flown out of Boston before with a previous carrier, and I have been back to visit and do some training there, and I'd be interested to do that. And then we just opened up the Portland base, and I'd like to do some flying out there too, but I haven't yet.
Well, we are looking forward to having you back on our next program, and we're going to talk more about your job. So thanks so much. It's been a pleasure having you on our show.
Oh, thank you.
We'll see you on our next show, and we will learn more about Katie's job as a flight operations training manager. This program is sponsored by the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation, and if you've enjoyed the program, I encourage you to attend our fall safety seminar on Saturday, November 21st. It will be at the Coast International Inn. Ladies and gentlemen, until next time, fly safely.
Welcome back. Well, today's sea ice analysis looks like this, and for the next 4 or 5 days, ice concentrations will continue to increase in the open water areas of the Chukchi Sea, and then say from Tin City along the ice edge here down to about Makoriak over the next 5 days or through Wednesday, it's expected to expand to the west 15 to 30 nautical miles, and then south of Nunivak Island here expected to expand southwestward there out of Kuskokwim Bay, southwestward up to 15 nautical miles. Again, that's through Wednesday. And moving on to the coastal forecast, gales here for the central and south coast, east-southeasterly 35 knots, almost a gale even up to the north there. Small craft advisories all through the inside waters ranging from north in Lynn Canal to easterlies there for Clarence Strait. And then for Sunday, still hanging on to some gales. Again, that next storm coming up, bringing the gale force winds with possible storm force gusts as well. There for the south coast, otherwise small craft advisories to the north. Northerly winds 30 knots for northern Lynn Canal. Same thing for Stevens Passage. Southeast 30 for Clarence Strait. And for Prince William Sound, north 15 tomorrow, north 10 for Cook Inlet. Winds pick up here, northeasterlies 20 to 25 knots as you head southwestward to Shelikof Strait. Northeast 30 there for Kodiak Island. Small craft advisories for the western Gulf Coast. And for Sunday, light winds out of the north, Prince William Sound, northern Cook Inlet, but south of the Foreland, small craft advisories there all the way down into Shelikof Strait. Winds lighter there for the east side of Kodiak Island. Northeast 20 to 25 from the North Gulf Coast and the Barrens. And for Bristol Bay, northeast 20 tomorrow, 4-foot seas, east 20 knots on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula. And then northeast winds here 20 to 25 knots from Cape Sarychev up towards Sitkinak. And then those will be easterly at 25 knots. So small craft advisories here for the Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay and the water southwest of Kodiak Island with seas up to 11 feet in the Pacific side of the peninsula. And for the Aleutians, northeast winds, 30 knots there for the western areas, 20 to 25 knots for Adak and Atka, and east-southeast at 15 for the Fox Islands. And for Sunday, those become easterly at 20 knots for the eastern Aleutians, and then northeast 20 to 25 knots here for the central areas. And small craft advisories continue for northerlies, 30 knots with 16 to 18-foot seas out west. And south of Nunivak Island tomorrow, easterly winds at 20 knots, light northeasterlies for the Pribilof Islands, and then small craft advisories here for the northern Bering Sea right up across St. Lawrence Island, where heavy freezing spray is in the forecast. And for Sunday, that continues, heavy freezing spray, St. Lawrence Island down into the northern Bering with 25-knot winds here from, actually 20 to 25-knot winds for the entire stretch of the southwest coast, and small craft advisories for the Pribilof Islands with 10-foot seas. For the eastern Arctic coast, northeast at 15 knots, actually northeast 15 for the central coast as well. Brisk wind advisories for the western coast, and a gale warning out here from Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort and the Chukchi Sea northeast 30 knots with heavy freezing spray. And those drop down to 20 knots, but keep the heavy freezing spray in the forecast. Brisk wind advisories here from Cape Thompson up along the western coast, and then lighter easterly winds for the central and eastern coastline. For tonight, again, not too bad, but look for an increase in the chance of rain and wind here over the southern panhandle areas, just variable clouds, risk of a shower to the north. And still could see some scattered snow showers over southern Cook Inlet, some possible flurries, but nothing significant over south central Alaska. And then not too bad here in the west. Stays windy on the western Arctic coast up there, and the wind chill advisories for the eastern Brooks Range and eastern Arctic coast as well, for temperatures down to 55 below. And then for tomorrow, this system slides eastward to the south of the Aleutians. Pretty nice conditions, but cold here through the western interior, and quite cold up over the north slope and Arctic coast. Chance of snow here over the eastern interior, all the way down to the eastern Alaska range. One dissipating front here comes up and brings some moisture into the central panhandle tomorrow, and then the next one coming across the Aleutian, or the Queen Charlotte's, will push another low center up to west of Dixon Entrance with gale force winds again, rain spreading northward, heaviest in the south, possibly staying dry around Haines. That's a look at the weather. Have a great weekend.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
If you're a rural Alaskan resident, consider applying for a seat on one of the Federal Subsistence Regional Advisory Councils by Friday, January 29, 2016. Applicants who have knowledge of the regional subsistence uses, customs, and traditions are needed. Council meetings serve as a forum for regional public involvement in subsistence management. Information at 1-800-478-1456 or email subsistence@fws.gov.
Find a living in fisheries. The UAS Fisheries Technology Program offers online study from anywhere in Alaska, plus labs and workshops in many Alaska towns.
I can breathe, I will breathe under the water.
Is most likely a chum.
Find your living without leaving where you are. Fisheries Technology from UAS.